Is this you? Are you tired of getting thrown around? My name is Kitohara, and welcome to my anti-king guide. Let me help you go from this to, well, not that. This video is going to be broken up to 3 different sections. The first section is for absolute beginners, the second is for intermediate players where I will show you some other options, and the third is for more advanced players and show you how to deal with the rest of his kit. Timestamps will be in the description, so skip to wherever you feel you need. I would encourage you to watch the whole video just in case, because you never know what might help. First off, I'm going to give some general tips that you should keep in mind no matter what the skill level. Giant Swing is techable even after you're in the swing animation. Just mash on one and you'll mitigate some of the damage. This is only countered by you hitting the wall. Ground throw is attackable as well. It's a 50-50, so don't let King grab you for free. Mash on 1 or 2. If you see him slam his head into your crotch, mash 1. If you see him break your legs, mash on 2. The Giant Swing is 50-50 as well, but most people won't do it as it's less damage unless you're at a wall. If you're unsure whether King is going to go for a grab or a mid, instead of risking the duck, you can always sidestep. Note that this won't always work when he's in heat because of the tracking throws, but outside of heat, try to abuse sidestepping him. Speaking of sidesteps, try to sidestep to your character's right. This will beat a lot of King's strongest options and force him to try and use other pokes like down forward 2 and down forward 1 and forward 4 to try and keep you in line. And even down forward 1 and down forward 2 may miss. Alright, for beginners, you're probably dealing with most of the following moves. Back 3, up forward 3+4, chain grabs, and shiny wizard. Because of who King is, let's start with grabs, and grabbing in general, as this is something that will beat a lot of beginners because your throw breaks aren't a skill most beginners have. I have 2 pieces of good news. The first good news is that the Tekken developers have given you a mode where you can practice your throw breaks in your throw break training. Just go into your practice mode and go into throw break training. This will go through all of King's grabs and allow you to train yourself on breaking grabs. The second bit of good news is that most grabs are duckable, and a lot of beginner Kings don't tend to use the powerful mids that King has. This isn't a habit you should keep for very long, especially as you get up the ranks in skill level, but ducking under their grab attempts and making the most of it will be your goal. Most beginner Kings won't even have a setup for their throws, and they'll just try to throw them out as much as they possibly can. For example, I have King here trying to attempt a chain grab on me. Pay very close attention to this animation. When you see this animation, try to train yourself to duck underneath it immediately because he's locked into this and cannot change what he will do afterwards. The reason I'm not telling you to attempt to break this is because this is already a 50-50. He can either go for this, or he can go for this. both have the same animation but different throw breaks, and they both lead to a chain grab, and the easier option is just to duck underneath them. Now, there is a difference between this move and this move. Notice the speed of the second one. They have similar animations, and this is going to be tricky, but most kings at the lower levels will not attempt to use the really strong mids out of the crouch dashing. Just try to spot the difference between this move and this move, because while the animations are similar, they are very different when it comes to danger levels. Alright, so let's say you're caught in one of these chain grabs. You aren't helpless. Don't panic. In Tekken 8, they actually made King's chain grabs a lot easier. For example, this is how you do the chain grab without knowing the, I'll call them special inputs. Watch the display on the left side. Yes, you saw that right. King's chain grabs are literally so easy that someone can just mash on one button and get the whole thing. However, it's worth noting that it doesn't do as much damage as a King player who does know the correct special inputs. However, they did give a way to cheat for that too. Now that throw where you heard all special effects go off and the little blue sparks going around him, that indicates that he's doing the full damage throw. You might be thinking to yourself, this is busted. But this is double-edged sword. With this key charge spam, he can only take one route, and that's broken by mashing on or holding one. Otherwise, it's 50-50. And if the King player really knows what to do, he'll do the actual special inputs, and that's when it gets a little tricky and you have to completely guess. But, for safety, bet on holding one. If after the specific slam, holding one didn't work, then hold two, because the King player probably knows what he's doing, and he's actually hitting the inputs, and he wants the highest damage. The same goes for his other chain grab that starts with the arm drag. Hold one and you'll get out of it 9 times out of 10. And again, after that slam, you don't break it, then hold two because he's probably going for the Muscle Buster Ender. And for King's most famous throw, you can do the same thing at just holding one, and you can get out of it most of the time, because most people will just key charge it. Now for the more dangerous grabs, the crouch dash grabs. These ones are 2 or 3 part chain grabs that do a pretty decent amount of damage when finished. The most dangerous ones are actually really easy to break. If you see them break your arm or your leg, press and hold 1+2 together. This will break both of the most damaging options known as the Rolling Death Cradle and the King's Bridge. King does have other options, but most King players don't end up learning those ones because they don't do as much damage as the other two. They can try to key charge these ones as well, but they won't get the most damaging options. But again, to beat those, just press and hold 1. And one final note, these chain grabs are very hard to step, so I would recommend either ducking underneath them or eventually breaking all of them. And with that, congratulations, you now know how to beat King's chain grabs. Pretty simple, right? Just press and hold the right break. Now, let's move on to King's moves outside of his grabs. Most King players will try and spam out this move. And typically in lower ranks and skill levels, it's for good reason. It's a powerful mid that leads into pressure and does a decent chunk of damage. The main issue is up forward 3+4, or what I'll be referring to in the rest of this video is the big boot for now, is unsafe at -12. Now I know most of you are beginners who have no idea what frames are, so I'm going to help you out. First, let's enable all of them. Go into display, make sure that player attack info is on, as well as player frame data is on. These are on by default, typically, but it's always good to keep them on just in case. Now let me show you how to read this. This number here, where it says attack startup frames, is how fast your moves are. For example, I'm going to throw out King's jab. It says it's 10 frames. The active startup frame is 10, so therefore it is a 10 frame move. This number here, at frame advantage, is how plus or minus you are after a move. Take note of the color and the number that pops up. It says +1. This means I have 1 frame advantage. Moves can be either plus or minus indicated here by either blue number or a red number. To show you what this means in practice, I'm going to have King here mimic me, which means anything I do, he's going to do exactly the same, and at the exact same frame. So, should I pull out a 10 frame jab, he and I are going to trade, because we are doing the exact same move at the exact same time, the exact same frame. However, if I have him block the first jab and then try to mimic me afterwards, he will do the same jab. Both jabs are 10 frames, but because he is minus, he will get hit. Observe. This is the basics of plus frames and minus frames. Now if a move is minus, but it isn't ridiculously minus, like say this move is -9. This is considered a safe move, because the fastest move is 10 frames, which is a jab. However, the moment it becomes -10, it becomes unsafe, because you can press your jab before they can block. Observe, and try to keep an eye out on the left side of the screen here. Now that you understand the basics of frames, let's put this into practice. Like I said before, up forward 3+4, or big boot, is unsafe at -12. Let's see what that looks like. Generally, grabs are around 12 frames. Some can differ like King's, where some are 10 frames, some are 12 frames, and some are even 15 frames. But generally, grabs are 12 frames. And because Big Boot is -12, he cannot break the grab. This is only because it's a punishment of a power crush, but for certain stages, that can mean a lot. Like this stage. This one has a floor blast. So, if I were to do this, and Reina grabs me, she can pop the floor, and I can't do anything about it. Not every grab works this way, such as this. But a lot of characters do have it, so find your option and make him hurt. Otherwise, if you get hit with this move, you have to take the mix-up. Most beginner kings will either go for the grab or the Jaguar Sprint 3. The grab is unbreakable, so you have to duck it. Technically, this is slow enough to be reactable, but even for high-level players, it's pretty hard to do, especially online. And if your back's to the wall, you really don't want to duck because of the Jaguar Sprint 3. The best thing to do is block, and if you see King reel back his arms, try to duck underneath. It may be too fast for you at first, but in time and with practice, you will get it at least half the time. Now let's talk about back 3. This is also a move a lot of the lower rank king players like to spam, because it does a lot of damage, it's a tornado, and it's armored. Much like Big Boot, this is also punishable, but this one is only -10, so you can only get a jab after it. However, unlike Big Boot, this is a high, so you can duck underneath and punish it accordingly. This move is still amazing, but it's not invincible. Jab or duck it if you have the read. Something to note, if the king player does do it at a certain range, it is really hard to punish. Another move I see beginners deal with a lot and have trouble with is down 3+4 or the alley kick. This is something that a lot of you guys will deal with, and while it is a pretty decent low as it has long range, and under the right circumstances, it allows King to do this. But let me show you how to beat this move really easily. Yeah, this move is actually really bad if they continue past the first kick. And even the first kick is launch punishable as well. All of it and its extensions are launch punishable for most of the cast. Anyone who doesn't have a 15 frame launcher can't launch the punch afterwards, but everyone can launch punish the kicks. The punch is also really slow, so you have time to react to whether he stops or tries to go for the punch. Have fun killing this new killing move. Finally, let's talk about one more grab. Shining Wizard, aka forward, 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 2+4, or running grab. This will usually only come out of beginners when they're nearly full screen or just want to run at you. To beat it, you can either duck it or sidestep it. It's a little hard to do, but with practice, you can do it. You can also break it with 1+2 when the animation comes out. Sidestepping it is the safest option though, because if the king player does the running knee or the running exploding drop kick, you can sidestep both of those options too. And that's it for the beginner portion of this video. More advanced tips will be later on. I would recommend continuing this video just in case any of the next following tips help you out. For you intermediate players, King's game plan evolves slightly. Beginner and mid to low level intermediate players will tend to duck a lot versus King. And that's great versus a King who likes to spam grabs all the time. But here's the problem. Congrats, you just got launched. And now he gets more damage, and a way better situation. Now we'll talk about the different levels of defense versus King. Layer 1 was ducking to beat his throws. Layer 2 is dealing with the mids that follow if you duck, and how to beat both. Also, as a side note, this is where you should at least be starting to learn throw breaks and actively working on them. Yet again, you can use the throw break training in practice mode to help you improve that skill. If all you do is deal with layer 1 and try to duck under King's grabs, all he has to do is not do them because you fear them so much. And if the King is good, he'll start doing mid checks. Or, if all you do is duck, then he's just going to launch you every time for it. Like so. So, what's the solution to this? Just block? Well, no, because that opens up the grabs again. Instead, we go to layer 2, sidestepping. Yeah, I know, sidestepping doesn't work, this is track innate, blah blah blah, but this is really the only way to beat about 80 to 90% of King's options, including grabs. Outside of heat, you can basically sidestep almost every single one of his follow-ups, like so. And characters who have a really strong sidestep, like Lily, can even step down forward 1 and down forward 2 respectively, to both sides. There's a few ways King can beat this, and that's either by realigning by dashing, or by hitting forward 4. Obviously, these crouch stack missteps are a little bit more advanced than what most intermediate Kings will do, but it's always good to keep these in mind. The thing is, there is no one way to beat all of these options in one go. This is the mind games and the mix-ups that the King player must do to really try and get value out of his kit. Your best bet is to react to what he's doing and try and sidestep most of his options. The moment he does the double crouch dash to try and realign, try and go for either a safe mid poke Or, if you want to be a little risky, go for a fast counter hit. This is also a good time to start watching your opponent and try picking up on his setup and throw timing. A lot of kings will set up their throws with these moves. These are just a few examples of the ones that either I have used or I've seen other kings use. There's plenty more and lots more setups, but obviously I can't cover them all. For now, let's work on punishment. A lot of intermediate players will let king get away with murder and you won't even realize it. For example, did you know that you can duck this move? Or this? How about this? King suffers when someone knows the gimmick. He also suffers if you know how to punish him correctly. So, here's some moves that you should be punishing. Here's moves that you should be ducking. This is all pretty hard to do, and even the best players don't do it every time. But keep these tips in mind, and you'll start to limit what the king player can do without exposing himself to punishment or retaliation. These tips will help you beat most King players, or at least help limit a lot of their offense. Now, we get into the real meat and potatoes. Here's where it gets tricky, and less about how to beat his moves, and more about how to beat his follow-ups and beat the player. This is the Advanced Player's Guide. The beginner area told you how to beat his throws. The intermediate told you how to beat most of his moves. Now, how do we beat his setups? In the more advanced levels of play, this will be less about how to beat him outright and more showing you the best options that he has and what you can expect to deal with for kings at this level. This is where things get a little tricky. Defense is already pretty hard, but defense in Tekken 8 is even worse. But the best defense is sometimes a good offense. King may have some strong tools, but his main issue is range. He's also not the fastest character, and doesn't have absurd plus frames like some of the others in the cast. His backdash is terrible, and his side steps aren't the greatest either. Keep out characters like Brian, Fang, and Claudio can really screw with King's game plan if he doesn't utilize every tool to his disposal, such as muscle armor, or the greatest tool Grappler can have, patience. The other way to beat him is to overwhelm him. King doesn't have the greatest panic buttons, and his best panic buttons are either locked behind execution, like Giant Swing, or punishable, like up forward 3+4. Not only that, but most of his panic buttons are either high or slow, so they'll miss or even get interrupted by people like Zafina, Xiaoyu, Anna, and Huarong. King likes to be at a certain range, right at about range 3 or 4, so he's just out of range where he can either whiff punish with forward 2-1, full crouch down forward 2, or make you scared to approach with muscle armor. Otherwise, he likes to be on the offense at range 0, or with his back to the wall. There's 3 big reasons for him liking his back to the wall. It's so he can do something like this.
Don't let your kids watch it!
What the fuck? After he's done slamming you into the wall... I mean pounding. I mean... get you onto a wall? After he's finished...
Oh my.
On Oki at the wall, he's usually and obviously going to end with 3-2-2. Usually this means he'll go into Jaguar Sprint. He has 2 main follow-ups here, Jaguar Sprint 3, which is a homing mid, or Jaguar Sprint 4, which is a low dropkick. He can usually wait to see what you will do on get up as well, so he can take his sweet time making his decision. The worst thing you can do is take Jaguar Sprint 3, as it will lead back into itself and you'll be back in the same position you were just before he kicked you. One way to beat this is obviously don't get up and play his game. He'll get a bit of the damage out of the dropkick, or he'll miss you with the 3. You can try and time the get up kick as well, but that can be pretty dangerous because if you time it wrong and you get slammed against the wall again. But if you stay on the ground and the King player guesses correctly, this opens you up to ground throws. Moving on. If you stay on the ground, he can also grab you there too. Obviously, the surefire way to beat this is to stand up and take the mix. But you can also risk the attempt and try and break the grab too. King can make the situation worse for you by instead of immediately going for a ground throw, do down back 3, which flips you over onto your stomach, so you're face down, and this can also be, hey, no, stop that! And also getting up for that is pretty dangerous, as it leads to this. You more or less have to see how observant the King player is, and deal with it accordingly. If the King player only does the Jaguar Sprint mix-up, it's down to a 50-50 that you don't really have to take. I usually recommend staying down because this is the lesser of the 2 damages that you'll take, especially grounded. And if he goes for a Jaguar Sprint 3, then he's going to whiff, and you can just get it for free. Remember that he can heat smash out of Jaguar Sprint now, so this is another option you need to keep in mind. Not to mention, he also has armor during the sprint, so if he's in heat...
Oh my!
God, I need to start watch what I'm saying. Outside of the wall, King has a few other setups that are more or less guaranteed if the opponent gets it wrong or doesn't get up at all. For example, if you get hit with a forward 3 into DDT, Do not hold back to get up, otherwise this will happen. You can technically break all of those throws if you guess correctly, but to combat that, he can also just do this. If you don't break the first one. In order to beat this setup, you can pretty much get up in any other way other than holding back. Or you can just stay on the ground. Obviously, if you stay on the ground though, he does have this option. The safest way to get out of this is simply hold up and block, and then if he attempts the grab, just to break it. Also something to note, if he does that side throw, the only way to break it is by pressing 1, even if he does a 2+4 throw. Now, this is a scenario you'll find yourself in a lot. Now the question is, what do you do from there? Do you try to roll? Get up kick? Toe kick? Handspring? How about just holding back? Or maybe he's about to win the round with a low, so better get up and block low immediately. Unfortunately, he has a move that beats every single one of those options. Forward 4. Yes, you saw that right. Forward 4 hits really low to the ground, and if you try getting up in any of the ways I've just showed you, you're going to get hit. The only two ways to beat this is to stand up by tapping up and then holding back to block, or by laying on the ground. Major issue, if you do that specific get up too often and he checks you with forward 4 a few times, you can also just do this. Just as you have ways to beat his options, he has ways to beat yours. The best thing to do is either stand up by tapping up and then hoping he tries to check with forward 4 so you can take back your turn, since forward 4 is -9. Otherwise you have to break a throw mix-up, or if you lay down hoping he doesn't read it and go for a ground grab or guaranteed damage with people's elbow, you can either launch him or punish him accordingly. If King decides not to do the powerbomb, he can also set you up for a back turn ground grab. Note, this only works if you do not immediately get up. He also has the ability to do a different kind of ender, which will set you up for the Jaguar Spit mix-up. This combo is also one you have to kind of watch out for as well. Alternatively, he can even set you up for a back turn mix-up if you roll. Again, there's no surefire way to beat every option he has here, but try to remain calm and not get up too quickly. If you stay on the ground, you avoid most of the biggest threats that he has, and if you see him stop sprinting, you have time to get up and react. Otherwise, you'll just be taking the drop kick, which still does a decent amount of damage, but you'll avoid the scarier options like RKO, charged JS1, and JS3. Finally, let's talk about his back turn mix-ups. There aren't that many, and it's a very niche scenario, but you should know what to expect. There's a few ways King can get into back turn stance. The main way from standing is to do 1+2. Now this move on block is -11, so it is punishable, but obviously you don't really want to risk that too often because of follow-ups like this. Especially if you're near a wall. Also, if you're a little late on the punish, he can set up a back turn 3 counter hit. The other way from standing, which is a little uncommon, is back 4. The funny thing about back 4 is that the back turn 3 actually gets interrupted by jabs, and that's because back turn 3 is 13 frames only. But if the opponent does try to jab, he has this option too. Otherwise, he'll typically use back turn stance after a combo or a setup on a wall, such as this. His most dangerous in back turn is also his weakest, as it's -13 on block. But on counter hit, he gets a full launch, and if King times it correctly, on a normal hit, he gets a swinging neckbreaker with some okie afterwards. Back turn is also where he has access to both of his unblockables. They're so niche, but when they work like a charm. Back 1+2 is a clothesline and it's a high, so you have to duck it. Back turn 1+4 is his moonsault. It's a mid, so it needs to either be stepped or floated. On a wall, if set up correctly, it's very hard to escape, if not impossible. Now, the thing is, you won't ever really see back turn 1+4 outside of a combo setup. And if the King sets it up correctly, it's nearly inescapable. Best thing to do is to lie down and take the least amount of damage possible. However, if he doesn't set it up correctly, you can side roll and potentially get away from it. The main issue though is if he did set up correctly, you're going to take a giant chunk of damage. Finally, let's talk about how to take a turn against him. Unlike a lot of the rest of the cast, King doesn't really have any strings or big powerful moves that give him a ton of plus frames. The main ones he'll be using are 4-4-3, chest bump, 1 jab, 4-4-2, and charge Jaguar Sprint 3. Most of these are either pretty slow or can be beaten by sidestep. The only one that can't be beaten by sidestep is Jaguar Sprint 3. King can combat this by either double dashing up or realigning, but the only other one that technically tracks is 4-4-2. Again though, right after these moves, the best thing that you can do is sidestep him, because you can sidestep most of the rest of his offense, or you'll sidestep his throws if he's out of heat. Now if King tries to set up his grabs or throw out his mids every now and again after these moves, you should try to interrupt him with a jab. Now, don't get too comfortable jabbing, or even dick jabbing him, because this opens you up to this. Either that, or if you do something too slow or too committal, he has the ability to run this really weird flowchart. So, to recap, here's some moves that you can take back your turn with, if he's not careful. And there you have it. That's my anti-king guide for Tekken 8. Hopefully you understand how to fight him a little bit better now and won't get caught up so easily in his tricks. Or maybe you will, now that you know them. Who knows? If you learned anything, please leave a like and comment on the video to help out. If you'd also be so kind as to subscribe as well, that would be awesome. If you have any other questions, please leave those in the comments or join the Discord, and I'll answer any questions to the best of my abilities. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next battle. Good luck to you all. Bye-bye!